John Woo is a director who will no doubt be remembered for his distinct style of action within his films. It almost feels like, when watching the non-action scenes, he's literally impatiently waiting to shoot the next actual action scene. Now, that's not to say that the slower scenes of A Better Tomorrow are boring or underdeveloped at all. In fact, the complete opposite. Since despite how unflashy and to the point this movie is, there remains quite a sweet and powerful emotional core to the film. So let's explore how this is, and why John Woo is able to craft such electric action scenes, and discuss how A Better Tomorrow is a perfect glimpse into yesterday's filmmaking. So like I said, A Better Tomorrow isn't a flashy film by any means. Anything that isn't an action scene never overstays its welcome, and the action scenes themselves are pretty brutal and efficient. At a brisk 90 minutes with credits, the movie simply flies by. This is definitely in the movie's favour though. The story centres on two brothers and how their diverging paths in life tear them apart. Despite how undramatic and unassuming the direction is, this emotional core struck quite the chord with me, and still, about a week later, the emotions it brought out in me remain. I find that incredibly impressive for such a short and unassuming movie. The other main character is the protagonist's best friend and bodyguard, I guess, played by Chow Yun-fat, and he was my favourite character. His friendship with the protagonist really furthers the emotional storyline of brotherhood, and if you change as a person, you risk losing people once close to you. I found the friendship really doubled down on this concept and only made it more powerful. Also, Chow's shootout in the second act was my favourite action scene of the film, and one of the best examples of Woo's directing being brisk and unflattering. Quick cuts and the struggle visible on characters' faces really highlights that living this life and fighting these fights isn't easy at all, and this further gives reason as to why the protagonist will want to leave it all behind. So there's layers of storytelling within this single action scene. A couple other things I really appreciate about the action scenes are the characters' intelligence and the lasting effects of them. So for the character's intelligence, say for this scene in the shootout, Chow hides guns in the plants and about the place that he can use when he runs out of ammunition in his other firearms. Now look, the amount of bullets in each gun isn't realistic in the slightest, but it's part of the fun of these films. But when you see him swapping guns like that, he's placed them in specific spots for when he needs them later. It just adds that level of believability that this guy is such an expert, and it really heightens the tension. Can he get to the next gun? Is he going to run out of bullets? It really builds that tension and builds the stakes of the action scene. And the other thing I really like is the lasting effects. So like say Chow gets shot in this fight scene, he stays injured for a sizable part of the rest of the film, if not the entire rest of it. His injury remains, he's got like bandages, he's bruised up after this shootout because it's brutal, look at it. But it really, again, builds that believability in the actual action that there's lasting consequences because there would be in real life. And once again, it builds up why our protagonist would want so desperately to leave it all behind. And it builds that tragedy that you just can't. So again, like I said, layers upon layers of storytelling within these action scenes, and it's so clever. It makes it more interesting to watch because these decisions have been made to add intelligence to the characters, to add lasting effects to the fights. It makes it a more interesting movie as a whole. The action as a whole was very entertaining, and the way it weaves in through the storyline with the trio of leads really lets it excel, and not just be action for action's sake, which is always greatly appreciated. I have to say, when watching A Better Tomorrow, which released way back in 1986 by the way, I find myself thinking about how this style of action films is sorely missed in the modern era. Movies like this, or American movies like Predator and Top Gun, where there aren't exactly the deepest things in the world, but the audience still shows up and the audience still cares. The charm of A Better Tomorrow is in the characters and the performances, a truly sincere screenplay, and badass action that doesn't overstay its welcome. Whether it's an over-reliance on spectacle or insisting it's more than it is, many modern action films simply miss these fundamental features that make such films so memorable, enjoyable, and just plain good. Please excuse my little tangent there, but it's been on my mind since watching this film. I really liked it. So let me know if you've seen A Better Tomorrow, and what did you think? Leave some film recommendations in the comments, and while you do that, please like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.